Hi there. Welcome to another installment in my somewhat disjointed series of videos. Today I want to talk about off-camera flash. And let me make one thing perfectly clear. If your idea of off-camera flash involves through-the-lens metering, TTL, then you might as well turn this video off, because this is not about that type of off-camera flash. This is about doing it on a budget. And that will involve using flash units like this old Vivitar 285 HV, of which I have 3. Anyhow, stay tuned, and I will be going over some of the details on how to really get started with off-camera, simple, old flash. Now I really need to start this this section off with a warning, and that is, if you have one of these flash units, do not put it on your camera. There's a little something called trigger voltage. It's the voltage that goes through the center pin to the outside here. Modern cameras are designed for high-tech TTL flash units that have trigger voltages that are 6 volts or less. An old flashlight unit like this could literally have hundreds of volts. I've tested these Vivitars. They are all between 7 and 8 volts, which shouldn't hurt most cameras, but it is not a risk I'd want to take. So that's the first thing. A warning, a caveat. Do not put this on your camera. Now that we've got that out of the way, if you can't put it on the camera, how are you going to do it? Well, let's take a look at some of the options. And we're going to start off with remote triggers. Now, before I started talking here, you might have noticed that there were some photographs showing some of my setup. And you may see behind me here some of what I'm using. So, as I go through here, I will be showing you how to set these up and what you need. Okay, the first thing you'll need is a remote trigger. Now, the absolute simplest one is a simple electric eye. It sees a flash from your camera and it fires this flash. There are a couple of points about this you need to know. First of all, it means you must use a built-in flash on your camera. And secondly, if your camera, this is a very simple unit, if your camera has a pre-flash, it will set this off prematurely, and therefore you will not get the benefit of it. So I'm not going to go through the details, because different manufacturers, of course, have different ways of doing this, but this I only use as a secondary flash unit, usually for the background. So that is an electric eye trigger. See a flash, it fires. A simple slave, you might say. Here I have a ProMaster transmitter and receiver. You can get the high-end stuff, but this is about doing it on a budget. And a set like this, which included a transmitter and 2 receivers, was less than $100. Now, how does this work? The transmitter gets attached to your camera's hot shoe. Now, caveat number 2. In my testing, I found that this will not work on the Olympus cameras that I own. So, before you go and invest in one of these triggers, make sure that it will work with your particular camera. Alright, so I have my Pentax. I slide this into the hot shoe. I set the camera then to manual mode. Okay, with the camera on manual mode, give me a moment here to get it set up. Okay, with the camera on manual exposure, I am going to set a shutter speed that's within the flash sync speed of this camera. Now, to understand flash sync, do a search. It will give you all the details you need. All I'm saying right now is that for this camera, it'll have to be less than, I think it's 1/80th of a second. I've set mine at 1/125th. And the aperture, that can wait. The aperture is going to be set depending upon some other factors. So there, the camera is ready. Now let's get the flash ready. Here I have the receiver. I simply put the flash hot shoe into the receiver, like so. And I'm using a light stand, so I slide it into the light stand and screw it down tight, and then set the head to whatever angle I want. That is now ready to go. All I have to do is turn everything on. Alright, in the next section I'll show you how to set up this particular gear in order to make yourself a very simple little studio. Well, here I am amongst all the bits and pieces. Each one of my flash units is blinking away to let me know that it's charged and ready to go. And I have my flash triggers, my simple little electric eye, ready. These are all on. A little blinking green light here tells me that. And now we're going to have one simple little test that you will find blindingly obvious, I'm sure, as I just set all of these off. There we go. All three flash units fired. Now, without getting into all the details of putting yourself together a home studio, let me point out to you why I choose this particular flash unit and how this can be a boon to you as well. These flash units have a control module. The neat thing about this control module is that it has a number of automatic settings, but then, because there is an electric eye here for measuring the flash power, but it also has manual modes. I can set it on M in this little window right here that you probably can't see. M is full power. I can set it to half power, quarter power, and 1/16 power. Now, modern flash units can have far greater flexibility than that. But here's the nice thing about this particular flash. This flash unit cost me nothing. It was given to me by someone who had an old film camera back in the day and had a nice flash to go with it. In fact, that's where this one came from as well. This one back here is the one that I bought back in the 1980s when I was shooting film with a Pentax K1000. So the thing is that these flash units cost me basically nothing. They run on 4 AA batteries, and the neat thing about the batteries is that they are also a bit of a treat because there is a battery holder. So if you can get some extra battery holders, which I managed to get because I also picked up 2 of these that were dead, but of course the battery holders were still good. You can have your batteries ready to go, insert, lock, ready. Set on manual, set on the power you want. Now, we're not going to get into flash exposure right now. Flash exposure is something that can be set through trial and error by using the screen on the back of your camera and histograms and so on. But instead, let's just finish off by talking about a couple of the basics that you need to do. Number 1, set your camera's white balance to the flash position or the daylight position. Flash should emulate daylight, so you should get the same color temperature as daylight, but you do have those two choices. So that's number one. Number two, remember, your camera must be in manual mode. Some cameras have an X-Sync mode on the camera's program dial. If you have the mode dial set to the X-Sync, then you should still be able to set the aperture, because it is the aperture that is going to determine your exposure if you're doing this in an indoor studio environment. Also, these flash units have a zoom feature, a very manual zoom feature. Play around with it. It may help you to get the exposures that you want. And also, don't be afraid to modify these things. This one up here behind me, what I actually did was screw a little mount onto this section of it so it sits like this in the on the mount in order to put on the umbrella. The result is that it's closer to the center of the umbrella and therefore gives a more even light. Again, it was just a case of, hey, I've got some time on my hands, let's see if this will work. And when you've got equipment that didn't cost you anything, you can afford to do that. So folks, good luck. Give it a try. Be aware of those warnings. Do not put this on your camera. I can guarantee you, if you get a high voltage one and you put it on a modern Canon or Nikon camera, you are going to have a very expensive piece of junk, because you will probably fry much of the internal electronics of the camera. Remember, what it will do is send tremendously high voltage through your camera's electronics. Now somebody might say, well, how come the old cameras didn't happen to them? Because they had a mechanical switch that fired the flash. Basically, simply a mechanical contact that touched, flash fired. Not a fancy electronics that measured everything, just that simple little switch. So the result is, you stick this on an old K1000, not a worry in the world. Stick it on an old Nikon F, no worries. Stick it on a modern Canon 5D, oh my, probably not good. Well, if you want to know more about this topic, please ask. If you like this video, please click like. If you think you'd like to see more, please click subscribe. And if you think this might be of value to anybody else, then share. In the meanwhile, happy shooting, everybody. Get out there and try some of this old stuff. Just be careful. Bye.